So I'm always excited when we get an insight into the data that these big AI companies have, because boy, do they have a lot of different kinds of data about a lot of different kinds of things. I wish OpenAI would come out with a better data about their power use like Google Gemini did, because I'd really love more data points on that. But what we've gotten are some interesting data points on how people are using ChatGPT and the various things they use it for. This is the largest study to date of consumer ChatGPT usage from ChatGPT. They did this study in concert with some other people. We'll get to that. From their page, which of course we'll link in the show notes, we're releasing the largest study to date of how people are using ChatGPT, offering a first of its kind view into how this broadly democratized technology creates economic value through both increased productivity at work and personal benefit. Right off the bat, there is a big smell to this summary of like, see how good the product is. So just bear that in mind, waft that smell away, and just focus on the data as much as you can. I've tried to highlight the bits where there have mostly numbers. So the study is a National Bureau of Economic Research working paper by OpenAI's economic research team and Harvard economist David Deming, drawing on large-scale privacy-preserving analysis of 1.5 million conversations to track how consumer usage has evolved since ChatGPT's launch 3 years ago. Given the sample size and 700 million weekly active users of ChatGPT, this is the most comprehensive study of actual consumer use of AI ever released. That seems broadly true. And you can read the paper. They make that available. I have not looked at the paper yet because it's 64 pages. It's a lot to parse. So I plan on looking. I'm pretty
sure that ChatGPT can summarize that for you. And that's probably also one of the use cases that they talk about.
Probably. Although I'll throw it in Gemini just to...
Yeah, you should put it in Notebook LM.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that would be the place to do it. So looking at what they have pulled from the summary, they found that usage gaps are closing. So that they said as of mid-2025, ChatGPT's early gender gaps have narrowed dramatically, with adoption resembling the general adult population. In January 2024, among users, and I guess this is going by names, among users with names that could be classified as either masculine or feminine, 37% had typically feminine names. By July 2025, that share had risen to more than half, 52%. So for as much as you can go off of people's account names and their sign-up names, they seem to have noticed the gender gap closing somewhat. The thing I think that's interesting is what people are using it for. They said that consumer usage is largely about getting everyday tasks done. 3/4 of conversations focus on practical guidance, seeking information, and writing, with writing being the most common work task, while coding and self-expression remain niche activities. Which is odd to me because everyone I know who works in programming capacity has been really encouraged to use AI, but actually now that I say that, not specifically ChatGPT. So maybe that's...
Yeah, it's more the Claude variants that people are defaulting to, though from what I've been hearing, GPT-5 is surprisingly good at coding. So, and may have either caught up or slightly surpassed where the Claude ones are. But we'll see. I think people have a lot of faith in Claude, but the metrics over the past few weeks have been showing that Claude code has been being used quite a bit less. So they're probably trying the newfangled capabilities that OpenAI has.
Interesting. I have not yet really messed with GPT-5 myself, so I have to do some testing on our end too. They say that they break down, they say patterns of use can also be thought of in terms of asking, doing, and expressing. So they found that about half of messages, 49%, are asking, which I'll just use their phrasing. It's funny. Asking, a growing and highly rated category that shows people value ChatGPT most as an advisor rather than only for task completion. Doing accounts for 40% of usage, including about 1/3 of use for work, which encompasses task-oriented interactions such as drafting text, planning, or programming, where the model's enlisted to generate outputs or complete practical work. And then expressing is only 11% of usage, which captures uses that are neither asking nor doing, usually involving personal reflection, exploration, and play. So that's probably role-playing, people using it for therapy uses, all of that kind of stuff. Makes up only 11% of its use, which I think is interesting because it is a productivity tool, ostensibly. Like the thing it excels at is pushing text around, right?
Right.
That makes sense, but I would have thought that because of its general exposure, we would have seen a higher number in that expressing category. It's also where you hear all the big stories, you know?
Yeah, and I wonder though, and I've not looked at this study deep enough to know the answer off the top of my head, But if this is based on use of the chat interface, or if this also includes the API.
Yeah.
Because I would assume that if you're also talking about the API, then there's some of those like role play and therapy and other services that are built on top of it.
That's a very good point. And unfortunately, I don't have that. I didn't see that noted in this summary and hadn't looked through the full paper.
I'm assuming they're talking about the chat interface.
I would assume too. The next section talks about how use is evolving. They say ChatGPT's economic impact extends to both work and personal life. They found that approximately 30% of consumer usage is work-related, 70% is non-work. So even though it's mostly productivity, most of that is non-work stuff, which in some ways is interesting. In other ways is encouraging because like we've talked all the time about the issues of putting work stuff into OpenAI's things. And they say a lot of it's decision support, helping improve judgment and productivity in knowledge-intensive jobs. That kind of that tracks for how I tend to use it the most too, of like double-checking my own domain knowledge, because I know enough to know when it's BSing me and just need to unfuzzify some borders of knowledge. And that's it for as far as the pull quotes from this. So the study paper itself probably has a wealth more information.
If you could, just do a word search in there for API and see what comes up.
Yeah, let's see if we get anything about the API usage. Here's something to pull from that. Here's a table. What are the topics of ChatGPT conversations? So they break down topics between writing, practical guidance, technical help, multimedia, seeking information, self-expression, and other/unknown. The three most common conversation topics are practical guidance, seeking information, and writing, accounting for 77% of all ChatGPT conversations. Writing has declined from 36% of all usage in July 2024 to 24% a year later, so less people are using it to write. Seeking information has gone up by about the same amount, 10% over the same period. I wonder if that has to do with people getting sick of like some of the repeated phrasing and things we've come to associate with AI.
And GPT-5 is not as good a writer as like Claude. I mean, Claude, I think, has traditionally been one of the better writers too. But GPT-5 is not near as good of a writer as like 4.0 was. And I think that the reason for that is because there was a lot of synthetic data that was used in the training of 5. And so you're training AI on writing from AI, and you get in this like circling the drain mode where AI thinks good writing is what AI is spitting out. And then we're looking at it going, wait, but where's the creativity and the spark? And so you have to do a ton of extra prompting to get it to start to, sound like it has life again.
So all of those tropes are reinforcing themselves.
Yeah. It's like the replicative fading with Xeroxing the same sheet of paper over and over and over again.
I think too that from using a little bit of inference in my own brain, not in the sense of AI, but in the sense of inferring things, I believe that this largely does exclude API usage because they say here, the share of technical help declined from 12% of all usage in 2024 to around 5% a year later. This may be because the use of LLMs for programming has grown very rapidly through the API outside of ChatGPT. So,
I'm assuming when they say, and I would need to double check this to know if I'm right or not, but I'm assuming when OpenAI says ChatGPT right now, they're talking about the chat interface that's publicly available. And when they say like GPT 4.0 or GPT 5, they're talking about the broader use of that, maybe including ChatGPT, but also the API.
I think you're exactly right. And I realized that as I was reading it, I was like, oh, their models aren't called ChatGPT 5.0. It's GPT 5, GPT 4.0. So the chat part of that does refer to the interface. Cool naming convention. Great job. Not confusing at all.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's interesting. I want to pour over this and probably bring it up next week. I'll probably print this out, have it on my coffee table, and like flip through it because yes, I'm that kind of dork. And maybe bring some insights from it that they didn't mention in the summary article to next week's article. But if you want to pour over it too, we'll throw that in the show notes. We'll switch gears and wrap up the show. Our final segment, Perry, I have forgotten what it is. What do you got coming up for us?
I have a smorgasbord of a few little things to look at. One is kind of dumpster fire-ish because it's making fun of some meta fails, not like abstract fails that are meta commentary on the world, but fails from Meta in their recent kind of live demo of some of their devices. And then we're going to get into some thoughts from Dario Amodei from Anthropic, as he was on stage yesterday at an event that I was at here in DC.
Ooh, fun. Get hyped. Get ready. We'll drop into that next.